Today we're working on my cafe corner. I enlarged this building actually about 3 years ago, but I never did any details at all to the rear of the building. And my new focus is to make everything as detailed as possible. So the first thing I did is took the top floors off and got to work on the base floor. Anytime you have a rather large building, you will usually find a transformer somewhere near it to supply all the power that it needs. And that was the first thing I did here was I built the transformer, made it out of green, put some grass there because typically you don't want to be able to see it. So I thought I would hide it a little bit. And with that, I put some ivy coming up the wall behind it, and I'm going to put a plant in front of it. And then I even put a service disconnect over on the wall next to it. Next, I'm going to be putting in some meter cans. I'm going to put 2 electrical meter cans and the gas meter. And here's kind of what my thought was with that. I figure the gas meter, everybody in the building can kind of share it. And with the electrical, on the first floor, I have 2 different businesses. We have the original Cafe Corner / coffee shop. And then right next to that, where I did the addition onto the building, I made it an Avis rental car place. So each one of those units has its own electrical meter. And that is typical with any leased space like this. Anytime there's multiple spaces or multiple leases happening in a building, there's always multiple meters. So I thought that was a nice little tidbit of detail to try and include with the building. As I'm bricking it up, I realized, oops, I forgot to put a light above the rear door. So I had to rip some of the wall back out to install one. Again, get everything back together, and now we start on the second floor. The first thing I want to point out, as you can tell, I do have interior space and walls inside of this. And how I divided each floor is each floor has 3 hotel rooms, and then you have the stair in the far corner, which is why I have no windows that I'm adding to the far corner, because I just feel you don't need windows in a stairwell. But I did need at least one in the hallway, and I added the other one to the back side of the very last room on each floor. With this, of course, I had to add some sort of fire escape, and I put the fire escape in the hallway section, which is why it is closer to the front. And then I'm also going to add a little bit more ivy because I don't want it to just be that small little space on the ground floor. So I decided I was going to take the ivy up all the way through to the 3rd floor, and that's where I was going to stop it. On the very side of the building, you'll notice I really didn't do anything, and part of the reasoning for that is because my Andy Griffith police station is going to be the other side of this alleyway, and I really wasn't sure how much space I was going to need to do some of the detail work in between these 2 buildings. So for now, I just decided to go ahead and leave it plain. Again, just like I did on the 2nd floor with the 3rd floor, I added more ivy, added 2 sets of windows, added another bit of the fire escape, and then I started bricking it back up. And something else I do want to point out is I'm using, just to add a little bit of highlight detail to the walls, I am using dark red brick throughout the building just to add a little bit more detail. And the awnings that I'm putting over the windows are also dark red. Now on the 4th floor, I ran into a little bit of a problem. And what that problem simply was is that floor is a little bit shorter than the first 2 floors. So what I ended up doing to put the awning over the windows, because I did want to have awnings on all of them, is I had to shorten it down a little bit. But anyway, after I got all that added, it was time to pull the top down and start adding some roof details, because you got to have some roof details on every building. And all I simply did is I ran 1 course of brick around the entire back. I moved both the chimneys in, 1 stud, tiled off the top of that new wall that I put up, and then I built 4 small air conditioning units. Once I had the air conditioning units placed in a location that I thought would be interesting to look at on the top of it, I started doing the pipe work, because you've got to have some pipe work to run power to each one of these units. And then on the far side, I put 2 disconnects. One is for the air conditioning units, and one, as you can see right there, is for the Avis sign. Now, here's where I cheated, because I wanted to illuminate everything. So I bought the Brick Loot Hotel lighted sign. I thought this would be the quickest way for me to get it done. And the first thing that I had to do, because I do all my own lighting with my own 1.24 millimeter plugs, is I have to rip that USB plug off. So I pop the casing off and unsolder all my wires and resistors, so that way I can solder on my own connections, which is the 1.24 millimeter plug-ins. And now that I got everything back together, here is the finished building. I am extremely happy with it. I think it looks great. Even though You're going to see here in a few minutes, I feel it could use a little bit more light, but all in all, to me, the fact that the front looks beautiful, the back looks beautiful. I know this one side is rather boring, but there will be a building next to that, so I'm not too worried about it. But again, all in all, I think it turned out amazing. And now to give you a little bit better look of the roof, you can see the 2 disconnects, the 4 air conditioning units, and then all the pipe work to run all the electricity to all those AC units. And then we'll slowly scan down the building. And I put curtains over some of the windows. Some of the windows I actually have lights and minifigures in them. And then on the ground floor, here on the left, I have the rental car place. And on the right, I have the original Cafe Corner. So my thought on the interior of that particular section is it is a cafe, corner cafe, and then it's also the check-in for the hotel itself. And for those that are not aware, this building never had any type of interior at all. So the interior that is now in it is all done by me. One more quick scan to show you the back of the details. And now a quick look at the building with the lights on. On the Ava sign, I used off-white LEDs. On the rear door and in also the hallways, I used yellow LEDs. And I do that to give me different brightnesses and textures with the light. Something else I do want to point out to give me the brightness, the different brightness to each LED and section. Some areas I use a 402, some are a 603, some are an 805. Each one of those will give you a different intensity to the amount of light that is being emitted. And I like to combine different lights in order to give me various illumination. Anyway, I hope you guys like this build, and you'll see it in my city soon.